Alright guys, just thought I'd give you a video here of the results for our 14th and 15th penny boxes that we just did on the weekend. First of all, I hope everyone's having a great long weekend. If you're from Canada, it's the Canada Day long weekend. If you're not from Canada, hopefully you had a great weekend. Hopefully your Monday's not going too bad. Now, as I teased in that dime box video, we had a really good result for the copper pennies this weekend. Again, we filled up completely the pail for the 1953 to 1979 Canadian pennies. But before I get into that, just thought we'd take a look at some of the better finds that we had, particularly for these wheat pennies and King George VI pennies. In total, we had 17 wheat pennies and 16 King George VI pennies, which is probably the most that we've ever gotten in our penny boxes. Remembering these are for 2 boxes, but most of them did come in the second box, which was also an extremely high copper percentage as well. But we'll spend a little bit of time on these. Just starting up in the upper left-hand corner. The first one is a 1919 wheat penny. That's a really great find. I was happy to find that one. Then we also have a 1937. Alright, and I'll just run down the line, let you guys take a look at each one. There's a 1941, a second 1941, 1945, another 1945, a 1946, a 1947D, there's a 1950, another 1950, but this one with a D mint mark, 1953D, a 1955, a second from 1955, 1955D, a 1956D, another 1956D, and a 1957D. So a lot of D mint marks on these wheat pennies here this week. Again, always great to find the wheat pennies before 1940. They're a little bit more rare. As you can see, we usually find a lot in the 40s and 50s. But we'll also take a look at these King George VI pennies. Again, starting with these 2 from 1940 here. A 1941, 1942. We have 2 from 1945. Actually, yeah, we have 3 from 1945. There's a 1946 up here, and then another 1946 down in the second row. 2 from 1947, a 1950, a second 1950, a 1951, and then lastly 2 1952s. Alright, so really great to find all those wheat and King George VI pennies. Down here we also have 6 of the American 1982s. Again, if you haven't seen our previous video, we keep all of these American 1982s. We'll weigh them later just to find out which ones are copper and which ones are zinc. Although a lot of times if you just drop them against the table or even flick them with your nail, you can hear based on what ring they produce. You can pretty much tell with the ring and just by how they look and feel which ones are copper and which ones are zinc. We also found, well, 1 dime for sure, 2007p. The one in the middle, that's a 5 pence, I believe English. I don't know how that relates to the American and Canadian dimes. But we also have a 10-cent piece from Singapore here. And I believe that's our first 10-cent piece from Singapore as well. I believe we have a couple pennies from Singapore though. And then lastly, we have two of these 2009 American pennies. As you can see, they are not the memorial pennies. I believe that's a young Abraham Lincoln reading a book. I don't know exactly how rare these 2009 pennies are. I know the nickels and dimes are a lot more rare in the United States in 2009. But we keep all these 2009 pennies as well. We only have a couple. I believe we have 4 at this point. So we'll add these 2 to the other 4. And then we also found a cent from the Bahamas, and then also a cent piece from the Barbados. Alright, that's the more interesting finds of the week. Let's take a look at the copper results here. Alright, so for the copper results, I'll just kind of break it down by each box that we had. In the first box, we had 1,169 copper coins. That works out to be 46.76%, which even that number is quite a bit higher than what we usually get, around the 40 to 42. Maybe we've even been trending a little bit higher than that the last couple of weeks. And just quickly breaking it down by years, we had 724 of these 1982 to 1996. We had 108 of the 1980 and 1981 Canadian pennies. We had 278 in the first box of these 1953 to 1979. And just kind of keep that 278 number in your head for now, because the second box is quite a bit higher. And then lastly, for the pre-1982 American copper pennies, we had 59, which is quite a bit for what we usually get. I think we haven't been doing too good on the American pennies recently. Again, but for the second box, I believe we had a box over 80% a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was either 86 or 87. But once again, we had 87.42% copper pennies, which out of the $25 box, 2,187 of them were copper pennies, which is really great. We kind of got lucky twice within the same month, which is really nice. And just breaking down each year here, we had 909 of the 1982 to 1996 Canadian pennies. We had 152 of these 80 and 81 Canadian pennies. And again, I told you before, we had 278 in the first box. In this box here, we had 1,016 of the 1953 to 1979 Canadian pennies. A lot of the rolls, too, were just pure pennies from these years here. I don't know what's doing that, but we'll take that whenever we can. So really happy with these large 1953 to 1979 Canadian pennies in the second box. And then lastly, we had 110 American pre-1982 copper pennies. Alright guys, so really great week. Hopefully we can keep it up. We have 2 months left for sure of being able to order pennies. So we'll keep ordering them from the bank and keep producing videos here for you guys. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be great. Thanks to everyone who's done so already, and we'll talk to you soon.